This is 50 Shades of Green by Climate Group, your monthly climate podcast exploring all the essential news and views from the US and around the world. I'm Phil Kehoe. Our guest correspondent, Climate Group's Adam Lake, will join with Sarah JanJua, Secretary of the New York City Agriculture Collective, to discuss the current state of food security in the city and how we can and should drive progress toward a more equitable future. But first, some news. We have Adam here with us today to discuss some of the latest highlights in climate news and why they matter. Adam, what do you have for us today?
Good to see you again. How are you?
Doing quite well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well, but I just been having to get my breath back after looking at story number one. I don't know if you caught this. Did you see that Marjorie Taylor Greene has endorsed Joe Biden?
I had not. That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, as you can expect, there's a little bit more to the story. Now, this is something where Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying about what's happening with this Inflation Reduction Act spending, all this investment that's going into building factories, roads, creating jobs, green jobs. And she made a statement where she was saying, no president's ever spent this much money and done things on this level. And President Biden said, yeah, you're right. And we're proud of that. They liked her statement so much, they used it for an advertisement. And why I think this is important, why I want to bring this up in this conversation, is because we've been talking so many times during this podcast about the politicization of sustainability, of ESG, of this supposed war on woke that some people are talking about. And it's really interesting because, when we're talking about these things in that light on social media, it's really hard to win. People just read what they want to read and they go further and further into these rabbit holes. But when it turns into jobs on the ground, things being built, it's a lot harder for politicians to play those same games. And so here we're seeing that conflict, and I think we're going to see so much more when politicians might say one thing, but when it's a question about jobs, when it's a question about investment in the community, people seem to be liking this Inflation Reduction Act a lot more than they let out, especially on the Republican side. So I found that interesting. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to funding opportunities, ways to get jobs to people that need them, and getting access to more income. These economic times, it's like super important to be able to actually point people to a source of funding and say, like, this is how we're helping you get through the day, through the week, and how we can help you be more sustainable and actually kill two birds with one stone here to...
Climate Group does not enforce the killing of birds.
But yeah, so it's like being able to accomplish two goals at the same time, I think is really important there in terms of fighting climate change as well as securing jobs for people. It's two critical things that we need to secure a better future. So there's certainly benefits to that I think we will continue to see in the future as these surprise endorsements keep coming out.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's interesting, a politician likes nothing more than opening a bridge or opening a factory. So we might see some changes in the political discussions there. Very briefly, want to jump into the second story, which of course is July has been hotter for almost every human being on Earth this week. We're not quite in July now, but if you're on planet Earth, you've probably felt it too.
It was estimated at 4 out of 5 people experienced a record temperature in July on Earth. So that is quite significant. And yeah, I'm sure if you've been outside in the past few weeks, you know what we're talking about as it has been sweltering out there. I think we really are seeing the impacts of heat on human health and the adverse impacts of climate change in real time. And I think that adds a lot of perspective as to what this crisis actually looks like in a more visual and literal sense.
It's scary as well. I mean, sometimes people who are not supportive of the work that we do belittle this idea of 2 degrees heat not making that much difference. We're seeing this now, and I don't want to dramatize everything, but people are dying. That people are seeing real health issues as a result of this. And it just really brings home to a lot of folks. And I think a lot of folks that didn't really care about this too much in the past, just what a big deal this is and how it's really important that A, we reduce the heating, but B, we make sure that there is resilience in place. We make sure there's some safety measures so that if we do not reach our goals and it does get hot, we can make sure we protect life on Earth as we know it in any way that we can. Bit of a negative one there, but it's a big story and definitely one that we could not skip.
Very important. Thank you, as always, Adam, for the updates, and we'll see you soon again on the show.
Thank you.
Climate Week NYC, convened and organized by Climate Group, is less than 50 days away. To celebrate in the lead up, we're bringing together some of our local partners taking climate action in the city to explore how and why the movement matters, how we can, we will secure a better future through bold and decisive climate action. This episode is all about food, where we get it, how we get it, and how it can become more accessible and sustainable. According to the New York City Mayor's Office of Food Policy, an estimated 1.2 million people in New York City were food insecure in 2022, with roughly 750,000 living in food deserts, or areas where people have very limited access to healthy, affordable food. What steps can we take to lift people out of hunger in an equitable and sustainable way? These are the problems and questions organizations like the New York City Agriculture Collective seek to explore and solve. Today, Climate Group's Adam Lake will be driving the conversation with JanJua, secretary of the collective, and providing his own insight on how local action can galvanize progress in the pursuit of climate equity and food security. Adam, welcome back to the show. And Sarah, also welcome. We are so happy to have you on here.
Great. Thanks so much, Phil. And hi, Sarah. Good to see you again.
Hi, it's great to see you again.
It was so nice to go down and look at NYC Agriculture Collective last week. It was a hot day, but it was really great. So thanks for being part of Climate Week NYC. Just to kick us off, I would love to have a bit of a brief intro about NYC Agriculture Collective. Can you tell us, how did it start? What's it trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the NYC Agriculture Collective was founded back in 2014 as just that, a collective of local NYC agtech founders meeting once a month to share resources and discuss ways to increase access to and exposure of the up-and-coming agtech ecosystem in New York City.
What does agtech mean, just for those who might not use that lingo?
Yeah, so when we talk about agtech, when we say agtech, it's controlled environment agriculture, growing plants indoors in controlled conditions using lights and HVAC systems and things like that.
Awesome. So how did it grow from that initial bringing together of people?
Yeah, so we formed our nonprofit a few years ago now, and our goal really became to create more opportunities for New Yorkers and beyond to connect with the urban agriculture and ag tech opportunities right here in our backyards.
Great. And it's in Battery Park is where we met last week. Like, how does that fit in that space in terms of the work that you do?
So our partner network consists of community gardens and other CEA, controlled environment agriculture operations all around the city.
It's great to see like some actual sort of physical things that bring out the story as well. Great way of introducing young people to the work that you're doing. I know you're really active. Climate Week NYC coming up later this year in September. Are you doing anything during Climate Week NYC? How can people get involved and find out more?
The NYC Agriculture Collective every year hosts our flagship conference, NYC AgTech Week. It's now in its 8th year. It's going to be a hybrid virtual and in-person conference. Underneath the Climate Week NYC umbrella, we'll be hosting farm tours and workshops all around New York City, as well as having 2 days of free virtual panels, bringing in founders and experts in sustainable agriculture and controlled environment agriculture.
Great. And I'm sure all the details from that will be on the Climate Week NYC website soon, if not already. So going back into the main part of this, what are the impacts of severe climate change on the areas that you focus on?
Our existing partner network, all of our farms, they're seeing an increase in their operational costs as they have to turn up their HVAC systems for longer stretches of the year to mitigate their extra heat load. Those are for the farms that are fortunate enough to have that extra cooling capacity in their operations, where the weather is outstripping their ability to cool their growing area.
So one thing that we're talking about a lot during Climate Week NYC is climate justice and environmental justice, which covers a whole range of different areas across New York City, across America, and around the world. What are NYC Agriculture Collective doing anything in the area of climate justice, and what does that mean to you?
Absolutely. So the NYC Agriculture Collective, we're hosting our flagship event, as I mentioned, the NYC AgTech Week, in conjunction with Climate Week, so that we can use our platform to boost the activities of climate activists in conjunction with the work that we do to advance urban agriculture.
So you're bringing in lots of different audiences who can get involved and sort of find out more.
Absolutely.
When people come and engage in the things that you're doing, if I came and I didn't know about any of this, what might be the most important thing that I might learn, or the most surprising thing thing that I might learn by getting involved?
I think you'd be really surprised to see how much food is actually grown here in New York City and what different people are doing to really advance our local food systems.
You mentioned a lot of technology being used to help support growth. Traditionally, of course, we didn't use any technology for these things. Do you think the use of technology is the future? Is that a sort of mitigation if we do have above 2 degrees of global warming by 2050? Not that it's a positive way out. We don't want to go there, but I'm just interested to know how that might look.
Controlled environment agriculture, it's not the one-stop shop solution. It's going to take sustainable agriculture practices out in our larger scale field farms in conjunction with this controlled environment agriculture to really secure our local food systems as we move forward and deal with climate change.
And obviously this is something that you focus on in NYC. Beyond West Coast, East Coast, in the middle of America, but also around the world in South America and other areas. Is this technology that is taking hold there too? Is this something that people are looking into?
Oh, absolutely. Controlled environment agriculture is really a growing industry across the globe. During NYC AgTech Week 2020, I believe, we actually hosted virtual panels with farmers, controlled environment agriculture farmers across the globe. So we had a few interviews with operators in Europe, a few in Africa, a few in Asia. I highly recommend you check out the Ag Collective YouTube channel to learn more about those different operations.
2020, that was the COVID year, wasn't it? Where everything was going on online. Did you find going online meant you could bring in more diverse voices from around the world?
That is exactly what we found. We pivoted the conference online in 2020 and we really grew our global audience. And now since then, that's why we've pivoted to a hybrid format. We do 2 days of virtual panels to give opportunity for everyone across the globe to tap in and network and connect and learn.
Out of interest, with this technology, if you compare using this technology to mainstream farming and agriculture, is it better or worse for the environment in terms of water usage, pesticides, the impact on the local area? How does it sort of differ?
So in terms of water use, controlled environment operations, they're designed to use the least amount of resources necessary. So they do save on water. They do save on the amount of land that you're using. You're able to repurpose old abandoned buildings. So you're saving on land, you're saving on water. There is a higher amount of electricity used, but a lot of operations are mitigating that impact by going solar.
You've obviously, seen so much innovation, so much change in this space, new things happening all the time. What would you say are the main things that you've noticed over the past few years in this space? And looking towards the future, what are the sort of big innovations that we should be looking for? What are the big new things that we might hope to see one day?
We're definitely starting to see new crops. A lot of our operators have done leafy greens and herbs, but now we're starting to see a lot of new crops being grown in controlled environment spaces, including different fruits, berries, things like that. So that's something to look forward to in the future.
Follow-up question on this one. So thanks for that on the innovation pieces. Just so I can picture in my mind, could you give a couple of examples of actual things that we might see that is a controlled environment? I'm really naive on this area. I'm thinking greenhouses, but tell me, what does this actually look like? What is sort of technology involved here?
So greenhouses are definitely a piece of the picture. There's also vertical farms. So you have grow racks with trays and water pumps and lights and different automated systems that are operating to grow the different produce.
Yeah. We're really seeing that food is such a major part of the conversation when it comes to climate change. It's one of the 10 themes that we have at Climate Week NYC. And if you go on the Climate Week NYC website, there are a whole host of events that talk about this. From your point of view, just how big a piece of the pie, pardon the pun, is food in this fight to tackle climate change?
Food is a huge part. Current agricultural practices are very unsustainable in terms of when we think about soil carbon sequestration, when we think about degradation of our waterways from pesticide applications. Food is a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to combating climate change.
Brilliant. And I said that last question was the final question, but I'm going to sneak one more in. What got you into this space? What got you interested in about all this?
I was a grad student at Columbia studying sustainability management.
Was that at the climate school?
Yeah, exactly. And I saw a volunteer opportunity. NYC AgTech Week needed volunteers to help coordinate tours, and they needed more people present. And so I volunteered at NYC AgTech Week, and I got to go on on a tour of the Lower East Side Community Gardens with the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space, and that really sort of sparked my interest in local urban agriculture and local food systems. And then, I did a few tours at different farming operations in the city, and I was just like, wow, it's amazing to see these different people who are so empowered by growing food locally. And that's how I got into the space.
Brilliant. That's so inspiring to hear. We partner with Columbia Climate School this year at Climate Week NYC. We have done in the past. And I think that's really one of the things we want to get out of Climate Week NYC, allowing these activations to take place. People like yourself can get involved, and then it can turn into a whole life in this space. So great to see it in action.
Yeah, it's really great. I went from a volunteer and then I interned in 2020 helping them pivot online, and now I'm a board member. So
well, there we go.
Go volunteer.
Definitely go. Top advice there. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so great to hear more about the work that you're doing. And just remind us one more time of those activations that you're doing at Climate Week NYC.
Join us during Climate Week NYC. We'll be doing 2 days of free virtual panels on September 18th and 19th, and then the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Come join us for different farm tours around the city, different workshops, and some different happy hour networking events.
Fantastic. And you can find all those in the food section on the listings on the Climate Week NYC website and the mobile phone app. Thanks so much, Sarah. It's been great speaking with you. Over to Phil.
Thanks so much.
Adam, thank you so much for leading on that conversation. I would love to hear your thoughts on what we can take away.
Yeah, it was great to speak to Sarah. Went out into one of the partnership projects that they're working on last week, so it was lovely to see it in the flesh as well and find out today a bit more about what they're doing. I mean, number one thing is I think it's so great, such a great example of someone who found out about something that's happening during Climate Week or around Climate Week, volunteered, becomes an intern. Now she's on the board. I think this is something I want people to take home about Climate Week NYC. No matter where you are in your career or your voluntary experience, there are over 400 events. Get involved, find out what's happening. People say, how can I make a difference? This is how you can make a difference. You get involved in these things that do make huge change. And we saw today that these conversations in these groups do make important change in these different areas.
Yeah, I mean, from her conversations, she seemed very enthused, and the time is now. It's never too late or too early to start your climate journey here and get involved. And I feel like that's really what Climate Week NYC is all about.
Totally. And, it was a bit of a sort of good news, bad news situation there. I think, she really demonstrated there's a huge increase in costs relating to heat. This is why we require these sorts of things. Now, she's demonstrated that through technology, we can find ways to continue to support agriculture, not just in sort of greens, but fruits and vegetables, not just in the US, but around the world. So one part of me thinks, great, here's some solutions. The other part thinks, well, it's a bit sad that we have to. So really fantastic that people are looking at this area, but just goes to hit home how important this issue is for everyone and for food security.
Yeah, I think the scalability here will be key, and trying to get these solutions for technology and food security out to a lot of different regions, I think will be very important. And we've seen a lot of this incubation here in New York City, which is a bit of a unique ecosystem with how many people live here. And some don't have access to this food, and being able to improve that access can really have great impact on human health and supporting people's livelihoods.
Thanks, Phil. Great to be on.
Adam, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and a special shout out to our guests, Adam and Sarah. Be sure to check us out online at climategroup.org, and stay tuned for all of our amazing events, including Climate Week NYC, starting September 17th. Climate Group's 50 Shades of Green is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and Google. Stay well, and we'll see you next time.